I never imagined I could return to a normal life after Olivia's death. She embodied the whole world for me. Her smile, the scent of tea in the mornings, the unexpected notes in my backpack that she left just for me. In that moment when the doctors announced there was almost no hope, I was at her bedside, squeezing her hand and vowing that my love for her was eternal. She passed away 7 days after the terrible car accident. My reality collapsed, and I drowned in the abyss. 24 months had passed, 24 months of suffering, sobbing, and endless images that pulled me into the void. I carefully preserved every photo, every fragment of her existence. I developed a ritual, every morning, tea, a photo of Olivia, a quiet conversation with her. She remained my anchor, my moral compass, my legacy. But then Natalie appeared. Natalie was in many ways the opposite of Olivia, energetic, spontaneous, with a sparkling laugh. She entered my daily life gradually, almost imperceptibly. At first, we just chatted as friends, discussing careers, books, TV shows we both liked. And step by step, her hand touched mine, and I felt my pulse come alive. The horror that I was betraying my memories of Olivia clashed with the desire to feel alive again. Our relationship developed rapidly. We shared evenings, meals, watched movies, had fun. But one day, Natalie saw my routine, staring at Olivia's photos every morning, sometimes talking to them. "Are you still living in the past?" she asked one day, looking at me as if trying to figure out where I really was. I tried to explain. "It's a legacy, I can't just erase her from my life." Natalie winced. "It's not a legacy. It's a barrier that's preventing us from moving forward. You prefer her over me." I fell silent. It hurt, but I knew she was right. I saw in her eyes a mix of despair and hurt. The next day, she said, "I can't be with someone who lives in the past. If you want to be with me, you need to do something about those photos." I looked at her and wondered how it was possible to erase Olivia. I felt like it was betrayal, but at the same time, I understood that if I didn't do it, I'd lose Natalie. I confess honestly, my fingers trembled as I pressed the delete option. I scrolled through the images, one after another, and with each tap, I felt a part of my essence evaporate. Photos from our first trip, the day Olivia said yes to me, the moment she first drew a caricature for me on the living room wall, everything vanished. Natalie was nearby, her eyes shining with satisfaction. But instead of peace, I felt panic, deep, piercing panic. "It's done," I whispered, not lifting my eyes from the floor. Natalie smiled, but her smile seemed foreign to me. She looked triumphant, but there was no tenderness in it. A day passed, and I discovered the vacuum that had formed inside me. Not the vacuum that arose after Olivia's departure, but a different one, the vacuum of betrayal. I had betrayed her legacy for a life with another woman, and that thought tormented me with every moment. At work, I tried to distract myself. Colleagues noticed my stiffness. I tried to joke, laugh, but thoughts of Natalie and Olivia's photos wouldn't let go. Every image, every memory, like a shadow haunting me. On the third night, Natalie came to my place. She sat on the couch, hugging her knees, and softly said, "I know it's hard for you, but now you're with me, you made a choice." I looked at her and tried to smile, but it wasn't a smile. It was a mask so she wouldn't see how I was falling apart inside. "Right," I replied, "I made a choice." And that's when I first realized that life with Natalie would never replace Olivia. I wanted to move forward, but with every moment, I felt like I was losing not only the past, but also a fragment of myself. A couple of weeks passed after I deleted Olivia's photos. On the surface, everything flowed as usual. Natalie was beaming, we went to theaters, dined at cafes, sometimes met with her friends. But inside me, a feeling of emptiness grew, as if I had betrayed not only the past, but also my essence. Every morning, I woke up with a heaviness in my soul. I tried to hide it from Natalie, but she sensed it. "You're distant again," she noted one day, looking straight into my eyes. "Something's wrong." I hesitated. "Everything's fine, just a lot of tasks." She raised an eyebrow. "Tasks or someone in your thoughts?" I sighed. She was spot on. I wanted to tell her everything, open my soul, admit that I couldn't let go of Olivia even after everything. But the fear that she'd leave if she knew the truth held me back. A few days later, my old friend James dropped by. We hadn't seen each other in a while, and he was the first to sense something was off with me. "Dude, you look like something's eating you from the inside," he said, sitting across from me. "You're still thinking about her, right?" I nodded, trying not to show emotion. "You took a step toward Natalie, but inside. You're still with Olivia," he added. "You can't ignore that." I tried to argue, but I knew he was right. That evening, I returned home and saw Natalie in an unusually quiet mood. She was sitting on the couch, staring at her gadget, and I felt a chill of unease. "What happened?" I asked. She looked up, her eyes glistening with moisture. "I found an old drive. It had all your photos with Olivia. I know you deleted them." I felt my heart sink into the abyss. "Natalie, you thought you could clean everything out and be happy with me." Her voice trembled with emotion. "You betrayed her legacy. You betrayed me by pretending it was just the past." I wanted to explain, to say I did it for her, but the words stuck in my throat. "I thought I was doing the right thing. For us," I muttered, but my words sounded empty even to me. Natalie stood up, approached, and her face was close to mine. "If you can't live without her in your heart, how do you plan to live with me?" Silence filled the room, and for the first time I felt my new reality might collapse. The next day I went to work to clear my head, but a new blow awaited me there. Colleagues started noticing my tension and gossip spread. Someone saw me talking to James about the past. Someone noted my pensiveness. "Are you still suffering because of your wife?" one colleague asked, almost in a whisper when we crossed paths at the vending machine. "Can't you let go?" I nodded, but inside, guilt boiled again. Every look, every remark, like a sting reminding me that I had betrayed Olivia and perhaps Natalie too. In the evening at home, Natalie was distant. She was silent, just sitting, glued to her gadget. I tried to start a conversation. "Let's just figure this out." "Figure it out," she interrupted me. "You think talking will fix what you've done?" I fell silent. Words didn't help, and for the first time, I realized that actions have consequences that can't just be deleted. That night, I lay in the semi-darkness, listening to her breathing nearby. She was sleeping, but I couldn't. Images of Olivia, photos, vows I made to myself swirled in my mind, and suddenly it hit me. I had lost more than I could imagine. The next day, I decided to meet with a therapist that James recommended. It was my first attempt to find some way out. "I can't cope with the past," I confessed. "I betrayed her legacy, and now I'm losing myself and Natalie." The therapist nodded. "You're trying to live with guilt and build a new reality at the same time. That's impossible without acceptance and approval. You need to figure out who you are and what's more important to you, legacy or reality." I left the office with a weight on my soul. The realization came gradually. If I can't accept the past and my actions, the new reality is doomed. That same night, Natalie approached me. "You saw a therapist?" "Yes," I replied, and I realized we're both suffering. She sat next to me and softly said, "I want to be with you, but you need to realize that I'm not Olivia. And you also need to realize that the past can't be deleted with a delete button." We were silent. The room was filled with quiet, but in that quiet lay insight. Our bond requires more than just photos and images. It requires honesty, empathy, and readiness for pain. The day after the conversation with the therapist, I decided to temporarily pause my relationship with Natalie to sort myself out. But reality, as always, didn't wait. In the morning, my phone rang. Sophia's name appeared on the screen, Natalie's friend. I wasn't ready for her call, but intuition told me this would be tough. "Hello," Sophia said with a slight hint of concern in her voice. "Natalie told me about the photos, and I just wanted to understand what's going on." "Sophia," I hesitated, "it's more complicated than it seems." "I know," she continued, "but you know what's scariest? Others perceive your actions differently than you think. Listen, Natalie says you're shutting yourself off, not letting her be happy. And you know what? I see it too." Her words hit me. I realized that my internal conflict had already spilled into the external. Friends, colleagues, and even Natalie's close ones were watching my every step. I'm trying to fix my mistakes. I tried to justify myself, but my voice trembled. Sometimes words are useless, Sophia noted. Actions matter more, and if you don't start acting sincerely, the situation might spiral out of control. I ended the call feeling a chill run through my body. Anxiety ignited inside me. What if Natalie leaves? What if my friends stop empathizing? What if I lose both the past and the present? In the evening, Natalie came home later than usual. She looked exhausted and irritated, but inside I saw hidden pain. "Did you talk to Sophia?" she asked, not looking up. "Yes," I replied, trying to stay calm. "I figured," she said softly. "She warned me that your actions could destroy us." I felt tears welling up in my eyes. I wanted to shout, explain that my actions were driven not by indifference, but by fear of losing control over the past and the present at the same time. "Natalie," I began, "I'm doing this not because I don't value you. I just can't fully let go of Olivia." She looked up, and I saw a mix of pain and resentment. "I figured you'd be honest with me, but honesty sometimes hurts more than lies," she said. "I love you, but I can't live in a world where you're constantly living in the past." In that moment, I realized we had reached a breaking point. I was faced with a dilemma: either fight for the new relationship sincerely or continue pretending and gradually destroy everything around me. The following days were filled with tension. Every interaction with Natalie turned into a test. I tried to be attentive, caring, but inside me, fear still lived. One evening, as we dined together, Natalie said, "You know, I can empathize with your pain, but I don't want to be part of your compromises with the past. I want a real partner beside me, not someone who lives in images." I was silent. My soul was torn by contradictions. Attachment to Natalie, guilt toward Olivia, fear of losing both. "I need a break," I finally said. "A break to sort myself out, to understand what's more important to me." "I know," she replied softly, "but don't expect us to go back to normal without changes. Everything we're building now requires absolute honesty." Those words were like a cold shower. I realized that if I want to keep Natalie, I need to accept the past, my mistakes, and sincerely face new relationships. That same evening, I met with James again. We sat in a pub, and I tried to describe the whole mess of the situation. "James, I'm afraid I'll lose Natalie if I'm honest," I said. "And if you're not honest, you'll lose her anyway," he countered. "Look, dude, the truth can be painful, but deception destroys even faster." His words echoed in my mind. I realized there was no way back. I had to act, and act sincerely. The day after the conversation with James, I realized, time for action. No more hiding the truth, stashing photos, or manipulating Natalie's feelings. I invited her to my place to discuss everything openly. "Natalie," I began when she entered, "we need to talk honestly. No secrets, no excuses." She sat on the couch, lowering her gaze. I saw her hands trembling, and it heightened the tension. "I'm ready to listen," she said softly, "but if you say something that breaks me, I want to be honest," I continued. "All this time I've been hiding part of the past from you, Olivia. My feelings for her, I deleted her photos for you, and that was wrong." Natalie looked up, her eyes filling with tears. "You deleted the photos?" she asked, barely holding back the tremor. "All this time?" "Yes," I nodded. "I was afraid they were getting in our way, but now I understand. It was insincere. I live in the past and try to control it, not accept it." She took a deep breath, as if gathering strength, and said, "Do you realize that honesty can hurt deeper than deception?" "Yes," I replied, "and I'm ready to face the consequences." Silence stretched out. We both knew this was the moment of truth. "And what next?" she asked softly. "I don't know," I confessed. "But I want to be honest with you. I don't want to build a relationship on hiding or fear." Natalie stood up, approached me, and placed her hand on my shoulder. "Then let's be honest with each other," she said. "But that means everything changes. If we want to continue, we need to start from scratch." And in that moment I realized, starting from scratch doesn't always mean happiness. Sometimes it reveals scars that will never fully heal. The following days became a real test. We tried to coexist, communicate openly, but every word was like a taut string. One wrong move and it snaps. Natalie became more distant. I saw her checking her gadget, reading messages, trying to understand the boundaries of trust. I, in turn, couldn't free myself from the feeling of guilt toward Olivia. One evening, Sophia called again. "Are you holding up?" she asked. "Natalie shares her fears with me." "Sophia," I hesitated. "I'm trying honestly." "Honesty is good," she noted, "but it's not always enough. You need to be ready for the consequences." Her words sounded like a verdict. I realized that any mistake now would cost both of us. In the evening, when Natalie returned from work, I noticed she looked especially exhausted. "Something happened?" I asked. "Just a tough day," she replied, "and it's hard for me to trust." I approached and tried to hug her. She pulled away. "Please don't pressure me," she said. "I need a break." I nodded, realizing that at this stage, patience is the only thing that can save us. But inside me, a storm of emotions still raged. Attachment, guilt, fear, anticipation. The next day, deciding to act, I wrote a message to Olivia. Simple, honest, gratitude for the past, description of my feelings, admission that now I want to be honest with Natalie. Her response was unexpected. "I know I wish you happiness. Let it be genuine happiness." I read those lines and felt peace for the first time. But immediately came the realization, peace comes with new anxiety. Now everything depended on how Natalie would perceive my steps. In the evening, we sat down to dinner again. I tried to be relaxed, but tension hung in the air. "Natalie," I began, "I wrote a message to Olivia, and I want you to know that's the past. It doesn't dictate our reality." "I know," she replied, "but sometimes the past hits reality harder than we anticipate." We sat in silence, both immersed in thoughts. In me, the awareness of reality became sharp as a blade. True attachment isn't the absence of pain, but the ability to overcome it together. But fate decided to test us even harder. The next day, Natalie got a call from her family. They learned about the message to Olivia. The tension exploded when her father showed up at our place with fury and reproaches. "Are you planning to destroy everything we've built?" he yelled. "How could you allow this?" Natalie tried to explain that it was the past, that I was acting honestly, but her father didn't listen. He saw only his truth, his morals. I stood next to Natalie and said, "We're adults. I've taken responsibility for my actions. We'll live with the consequences, but honesty isn't a crime." The words caused shock. Natalie's father didn't expect such directness. He fell silent, and for the first time, I felt I could defend my decisions despite external pressure. But the internal conflict didn't disappear. We both knew the path to balance was just beginning, and ahead lay more pain, compromises, and tests of trust. The days after Natalie's father's visit turned into a test of endurance. Every conversation with her, every glance at past photos, everything seemed like a trap. I saw how she tried to control herself, but her eyes betrayed exhaustion and pain. "I thought we could overcome it," she said one evening as we sat silently at the dinner table. "But I'm exhausted. It's all too complicated." "I know," I replied, trying to be gentle. "We're both exhausted, but isn't honesty worth it?" She shook her head. "Honesty isn't always happiness. Sometimes it hurts more than hidden deception." I felt a chill of horror. Natalie's words cut to the soul, but I knew she was right. Sometimes attachment doesn't withstand the test of truth. The next day, she packed to go to her parents. "I need a break," she said, packing her things. "I don't know if I can forgive." I tried to hold her back, but I realized you can't force someone to stay. Attachment, if held by force, turns into suffering. "I want you to know I love you," I said, "and if you ever want to come back, I'll be waiting." She smiled sadly. "Thank you, but now I have to go." When the door slammed shut, silence engulfed the home. I sat on the couch and for the first time in a long while felt the vacuum. Questions swirled in my mind. Did I do the right thing? Could I have avoided all this? Do we have a future? Several weeks passed. Natalie didn't call, didn't write. We both tried to live on, but every day reminded us of what was lost. I sometimes looked at old photos of Olivia, their smiles and happy moments, and felt a mix of nostalgia and peace. At the same time, I imagined how my reality with Natalie could have turned out. Simple, sincere, but destroyed by circumstances and the past. I started working harder, immersed in projects and meetings, trying to fill the vacuum with activities. But even the most successful days were tinged with melancholy. One evening I received a message from Natalie, short but meaningful. I realize honesty was necessary. I appreciate your directness, but our paths diverge. I wish you happiness. I sat in the semi-darkness, holding the message in my hands, and felt a strange mix of bitterness and peace. Honesty left scars, but it was the only choice I could make with a clear conscience. Several months passed. I met new people, tried to build new connections, but the images of Natalie and Olivia were always nearby. They became part of me, a lesson that couldn't be ignored. Sometimes I wondered, did I make the right choice? But I realized living with deception would have been worse. Every step, every decision was difficult, but they shaped me as a person. I learned to accept pain, recognize responsibility for my actions, and understand that attachment is not only happiness, but also readiness to accept the consequences of honesty. The story ended not romantically and not ideally. It's bitter like autumn after rain. But in that bitterness lay the truth, and truth, no matter how hard, is the only thing that makes us human. I was left alone, with images, with lessons, with the hope that one day I could trust and love again, without hiding myself and without concealing the past.